Hello YouTube, and welcome to a new Elder Scrolls lore video. Today we're going to talk about some characters that most people have crossed once or twice during their playthroughs, but never really learned the full story on, or at least most of you. I'm talking about the members of the failed expedition at Alftand, led by Sulla Trebatius. After my Blackreach video of a few weeks ago, I got some requests to cover this expedition, as it seems like not many people know the full story on it. So yeah, here we are. I hope you will enjoy the video. Let's kick off. The story of this failed expedition begins with Sulla Trebatius, a former member of the Imperial Legion and part-time adventurer it seems. He is sick and tired of the Legion taking all the glory for whatever deeds he has done in the past and wants to make a name for himself, to make his own name go down in history. From his journal we can discern that he first tried to help some mages with a discovery or something, be it the College of Winterhold, the Synod or the College of Whispers, probably the College of Winterhold. Maybe even some standalone organization, but I personally suspect the College of Winterhold. However, this organization of mages also claimed all the glory over whatever they discovered, leaving Sulla's name in the dark, and he got really fed up with that. Sulla then decides that for his name to go down in history, he will need to set up an expedition all of his own and make a grand discovery so that his name, and his name alone, will go down in history for whatever he uncovers. From this point on, we don't know exactly what the order of events is, but I pieced together something and I assume that it went something like this. Sulla goes to search for the rumors of a great mystery and somehow learns of the Dwemer ruins of Alftand, which are said to contain a gateway into the elusive Blackreach, a sort of legend among historians. He then decides to mount an expedition there and recruit a crew for the journey. He recruits Umana, a Redguard warrior, to serve as his protection and his bodyguard. He then recruits Andrast, an explorer of some renown, to help him out. And finally he recruits Vali, an Almer mage, who isn't associated with any guild or organization. According to his expedition manifest, it was very hard to find her, as most mages are associated with guilds or organizations. And it was very important for him not to have any organization members on board with the expedition, so that he could claim full credit for the discovery that they would make. The group then travels to Skyrim to get to Alftand, and on their way they recruit Yag-ga Grotworg, an orcish mercenary, along with some other laborers to help them excavate the ruins. Yag was hired as a mercenary to keep the laborers in line and prevent them from running off with any discoveries or sabotage the expedition. Among the hired laborers were two Khajiit brothers, Jadar and Jazar, who were signed up by Jazar in order to get Jadar away from the life addicted to skooma. Yet this was done in hopes of helping him kick off the substance and provide him distraction in work. The group traveled to Alftand and set up their camp, securing the site so no others would be able to enter or interfere in their work. They end up concluding that the way into Alftand is blocked by massive glaciers and that they won't be able to enter the ruins. They keep searching for entrances, but they cannot find ways through the ice, and the one tower that seems to lead into Alftand is hermetically shut. Apparently, after a couple of weeks, the labor overseer Yag mentions how she's noticed a fissure down in the ice in the ravine, which could lead them into the ruins. Sulla then orders the construction of a walkway so they can reach the fissure and start excavating it. During the construction of the walkway, it is apparent that a storm is coming, and as the storm begins, the walkway down to the glacier is finished almost. The group then decides to wait out the storm in their huts and tents before continuing to excavate the fissure. However, the early effects of the storm cause part of the glacier higher up to break off, which ends up killing a lot of the workers. Sulla then orders for the remaining laborers to go out into the storm and open the fissure. Somehow they manage to do it, and Sulla then orders for their supplies to be carried into the ruins via the fissure in the walls. This was mostly successful, but Sulla writes how one of the laborers actually refused to go along with the plan and was blown off the walkway by the wind while falling to the chasm below. The group is then stuck inside the ruins. Morale is pretty low because of the many worker deaths. Jazar and Jadar are the only workers left, but Sulla is more motivated than ever to press on, since he's finally inside. The group heads into the ruins then and sets up camp in a cavern close to the glacier entrance. This is where Sulla's journal ends, but the remainder of the story is actually told through the journals of his expedition members. The first journal to pick up the story is that of Jazar. Jazar mentions how they have been trapped in the ruins for several weeks now, and that the little skooma that he brought for Jadar has run out. Jadar is starting to get ever more extreme addiction withdrawal effects during this period, and the rest of the group starts shunning them as Jadar tells of creatures coming out of the ruins in the ice, most likely hallucinations, thinks Jadar. The group presses on into the ruins, exploring the first few rooms very slowly. Then one day, Valley, the mage of the group, suddenly disappears overnight. The group seems to suspect that Jadar and Zazar have something to do with it and that they might have killed them, as Jadar was actually acting very weird. Yag, however, as leader of the labor force, believes the Khajiit when they say that they are not behind the disappearance of Valley. The group then continues to press on slowly, meanwhile searching for Valley. And about a week after Valley's disappearance, Andrast, the explorer, also disappears overnight. When they search for him in the ruins, they find a trail of blood leading to a barred-off door. Umana suspects that he has been dragged off by some creature, but Sulla is getting more paranoid by the hour and rants that Valley and Andrast have probably found a secret way through the ruins and tried to cut him out of the discovery, completely ignoring the blood that's on the ground. Sulla then forces the group to press on more quickly, and the group manages to reach the Anemonculory of Alftand. There, the group learns that the metal machinations of the Dwemer are still functioning as dwarven spiders and spheres attack the group. They manage to fight off the Dwemer creations, but this event lowers morale in the group even more, and according to Umana's journal, it lowered the mood of Yag especially, who is becoming wary of Sulla's paranoia as well. The group is then almost out of rations and needs to decide whether they would press on or if they turn back to see if the storm is over. They ended up pressing on, most likely by command of Sulla. Then, an undetermined amount of time progresses as the story told by the journals is temporarily intermitted. The next thing we learn is from a journal page from Andrast, the explorer, who had been captured earlier that week. He tells of how he had been taken in his sleep by eyeless creatures and thrown into some cage. The creatures, or the Falmer as we know them, then also brought in Yag, Umana and Sulla, who they apparently also captured in their sleep and who were locked up with him in the cage. The Khajiit brothers are no longer with the group at this point. It's safe to assume that they decided to go back and try see if the storm was over, as we find them back at the entrance of Alftand in Skyrim. Andrast manages to pick the lock of the Dwemer cage after some time, giving him the opportunity to flee. But the group splits up during their escape as Sulla flees forward, further into the ruins, yelling that he won't leave without finding what he came for, chased by his bodyguard Umana. Yag and Andrast meanwhile attempt to get back to the entrance. Yag then saves Andrast by throwing him up on a ledge as they are chased down by Falmer. And then Andrast is hit in the shoulder by a poisoned arrow and Yag tells at him to run and save himself. Andrast hears Yag being cut down by Falmer down below as he attempts to hide in the ruins, but he ends up dead as well. We find him dead, and that's most likely from the poison of the Falmer arrow, as we can read that he hid somewhere in a small space and dared not move because he was afraid that any creatures or machinations would find him. The story of the journals end here. Sulla and Umana would press on into the Alftand Cathedral, finding the entrance to Blackreach but being unable to open it without the attunement sphere that we get from Septimus in the game. We find them here in our playthrough. Umana will attempt to bring Sulla to reason and tell him that they should turn back and try to get back to the entrance. But Sulla then attacks her after ranting that she just wants to return here herself and claim all the glory as he is turned back. Most likely the canon outcome of this is that Sulla kills Umana, then Sulla is killed by the Dragonborn, who was also venturing into the ruins not much later than the group, and then encounters Umana and Sulla at the Cathedral of Alftand. I say that the Dragonborn did not venture in much later than them because Jadar, Sulla and Umana have not died of starvation yet, while the rations ran out a short while ago. Meaning that when the Dragonborn enters the Alftand Cathedral, Umana and Sulla reach that place probably around the same time. In the end, we can also learn what happened to Valley. Her body can be found in a Falmer torture room where she has been tortured to death by the creatures after being captured by them in her sleep. We of course also learn what happened to the Khajiit brothers. Jazar ends up dying, presumably killed by Jadar in one of his skooma withdrawal hallucinations. Jadar is pretty far gone by the time we find him, as we can hear him talking about skooma to Jazar as if his brother was still alive when we enter the ruins. And Jadar is then of course killed by the hands of the player as he attacks the player on sight. This is basically the story of the expedition pieced together from all the journals, but before I end it, I want to say two more things. One is that I find the story of Jadar pretty tragic, as he saw the Falmer and panicked, saying that the creatures came from the ruins in the ice, but His brother did not believe him and did not tell it to the rest of the group and wrote it off as some hallucination resulting from skooma withdrawal. If his panic had been taken seriously, a lot of the deaths might have been avoided, as they did not really start thinking that something might be off until the disappearance of Andrest, as before then the group seemed to think that Jazar and Jadar were responsible for the disappearance of Valley. And second, by seeing in which factions the NPCs are programmed to be, we can actually learn something about the possible backstories of the expedition members. We don't really know anything about Sola and Umana, as they are not placed in any factions, but it's very interesting to see what we can discern from the others. Yag was, for example, classified as a tribal orc, indicating that she might have come from one of the strongholds in Skyrim. Valley is in the East March crime faction, indicating that she might have been a criminal mage living in or around Windhelm, which would explain why she isn't affiliated with any organization. Andras the Explorer is actually labeled as a member of the College of Winterhold. You can even get repercussions if you kill him after resurrecting him, as if he is a member. Meaning that he might have been an agent by the college to see what Sulla was up to. It's a bit of a dumb theory maybe, but I would find it pretty ironic if that were true, as Sulla really didn't want anyone from the college to be there on the expedition, but then they have an agent on the expedition. I don't know, I find it funny. And that was the fully pieced together story of the failed Alftand expedition. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, consider sticking around until the next Elder Scrolls lore video coming out next Thursday, airing around the same time as this one. Before I end this video, allow me to vocally thank my top patrons Mr. Bernardo Binda, Mr. Metalloid1v1, Hayden Barnes and Gabriel Binda. These guys, along with the other amazing people on screen, make it possible for me to make this weekly Elder Scrolls lore thing, and thus I'm very grateful to them. And of course, I'm also very grateful to all you people watching right now, and I hope to see you next week when there's another fresh new Elder Scrolls lore video. Bye bye!